Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Tuesdays. Hard to believe we're halfway through the year, July 1st, 2025. We're very glad you're with us today. Please note this event is being recorded. The recording will be on the Career USA YouTube channel for others of you in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. And we invite everybody who's on Zoom right now to open up the chat box, put in your name, put in your position you're looking for, give us your email address or your LinkedIn address, connect with everybody else who's on the call today, because maybe we can help you make that connection and help you find your next position. This is also a great way to connect with everybody else who's on the call so you can expand your connections, because you never know who they will know. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morse. Back in 2008, I started careerdfw.org, a website to help those unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I launched careerusa.org to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon, or if you see me, I always have copies with me. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007 when the prior leader landed a job. And in 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, interviewing candidates, which is the best way to practice your interviewing before you really have one. Well, we have four outstanding speakers who speak with us on a monthly basis. Today, our speaker is Locke Alderson. He's going to talk about how to use LinkedIn for job hunting, strategies to get results. So, Locke, I'll turn it over to you. You're muted. There we go.
Well, thanks for that warm introduction. Have I got sharing, George? Jeff?
Yeah,
Okay.
you should be able to.
No?
Yep, here it comes.
Got up there?
You're there.
I'm there. Well, that's me up there on the screen, folks, and my little bit of my bio on the background. Good. So that people could see that.
Probably want to click on from beginning. Start the slideshow from the beginning.
Slideshow from the beginning. There we go. Well, that's my bio up there. 42 years in recruiting, off and on, and with the different things, working in corporations, working for a government, and having my own recruiting firm for 12 years in there, and 23 years in career counseling, working with those in career and job transition. And there's my bio up there, some of it. That's not all of the history. My wife asked me how many companies I'd worked for, because she said when I was introducing myself over dinner to a new couple that we had just met, she said, "You talk too much. You gave too much of your history." So, but that's my background. There's probably about 20 companies that I've worked for in the 42 years, actually, in the time that I've been out, I guess, in job hunting, and that time over the years. I've been a recruiter, I've been a career counselor, and I've been a job hunter. And that spans some 50 years, if you will, in my lifetime. And one of the people ask me sometimes, "Well, why have you done that? What have you done in doing that?" As I said, because other people have given back to me. And for those of you who would like a copy of the slide presentation today, because I'm going to go kind of fast, they're going to just send me an email at lockealderson@gmail.com, and I'll send you the slide deck. There's also some bonus material that we're not going to cover today about networking and those kind of things, because other LinkedIn recruiters on our panel cover those in great detail. Well, one of the things that's guided me through the time is, those times when I've been in work and been unemployed, and actually there've been about 6 of those times over my career, is knowing the Lord and trusting in Him for help and help and encouragement. And blessed be the Lord, that day after day He bears our burdens, those burdens of helping you through those times of anxiety, from Psalms 68:19. Well, one of those times in my life was when we came to Texas. I was notified I was going to be laid off about a month ahead of time, and so I started my job search. And actually interviewed with 17 companies. And that's what it seems to be actually 19 companies. 16 of them actually said no. And 2 of them said, well, we'll get back to you. And 1 of them said, we'd like you to come to Texas and work for us in Texas. And at that time, shortly after that time, during that time frame, I know my wife was a stay-at-home mom. And so 6 months into the job or 8 months into the job, I was laid off again. And I didn't have that. My wife, as I said, was a stay-at-home mom. I went and notified my credit union that I was out of work and was not expecting to miss a payment on my mortgage, and just to let them know my status. And I do advise that for you, if you're out of work, to keep your creditors involved. They may be more tolerant with you if you happen to be late on a payment. But anyway, that 16 jobs that said no was kind of a discouraging thing. So being with the Lord and going into the scripture helped me on a regular basis. One of the questions we ask is, why are you using LinkedIn? And you should be asking yourself for that. Well, LinkedIn is part of the relationships we have in life. It's really relationship. And our pastor gave a sermon on real relationships or in real life. And there are basically 2 functions of relationships. One is to showing up, and the other is opening up. Well, LinkedIn is the same way. For showing up, it's being found on LinkedIn. That's one of the topics we're going to talk about today. The other is opening up, what you've done and how well you've done it. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And recruiters and hiring managers want to know 3 things. Now, these are the questions that are in the back of their mind when they talk to you and look at you. Do you have the skills and experience to do the job? Can and will you do the job? And will you fit with our culture? So those are things to remind yourself of when you think about recruiting and the recruiting process. Well, if you're using LinkedIn, one of the reasons that people use LinkedIn today is there are probably a million users worldwide. Well, it started out as a networking tool among sales and marketing professionals. Recruiters quickly latched onto it because it was a way to find out information, to do networking, to talk to people and find out about their backgrounds. And again, it's probably the #1 tool in recruiters' toolbox today in finding people. And it's been estimated that 95% of recruiters use LinkedIn to find and engage talent. One person who's used LinkedIn to find a job said, LinkedIn has been an irreplaceable tool in my job search. The ability to show employers my exact experience and skills that I have on my profile is what ultimately landed me the job. And I know that, having counseled people and worked with them on their LinkedIn profile over the years. So that's one of the things we wanted to talk about today. So here's the topics we're going to cover today. And as I said, there's some bonus material if you get the slides about networking and how do you find people in companies, because that's important too. But your profile is probably the most important thing that we talk about. Your headline and your open to work sections, your dashboard, which some of you may not have thought about, and your about sections. And your about section is really your summary of your experience. In your professional work history, that's your, like your resume, if you will, and your skills and endorsements, which is something that often isn't included in your resumes. And how do you optimize your profile for job search? Again, how do you get found, in other words, on LinkedIn? And how do recruiters actually do searches on LinkedIn, which is important that you know the process that they use and engage in. And how do you search for jobs, creating job alerts, and how to use filters, and then some homework for you in the last thing that we want to talk about. Well, one of the things we talk about your LinkedIn profile, does it attract hiring managers' attention? Well, recruiters look and hiring managers typically look at resumes and LinkedIn profiles in 6 to 10 seconds and making a judgment. They either look at it further, or come back to it, or push it off into the no pile. Probably 90%, anywhere from 75 to 90% of the resumes that are sent, that they look at, are turned down. Even though statistically, I know that some people, and not those that are rejected, can actually do the job and do it very successfully. Well, it all starts with your profile. Here's a copy of my profile, at least an older version of that. Again, you notice some things about that. There's a background photo there as well, again, that you want to take a look at. And also my name that I go by. Again, my legal name is John Locke Alderson Jr. So you want to use the name that you're going to be called by. Actually, when telemarketers call and ask for John Alderson, I ask them which one. And they say, well, John Alderson Sr. And I say, well, unfortunately, he passed away about 20 years ago. And if you're looking for the third, he lives down in Austin. So again, you want to make it easy for that person when they pick up the phone, try and reach out to you. What is the name that you want to be called by? And if it's a difficult name to pronounce, I'll get it that way. You won't want to put how it's pronounced phonically. So the first impression that they have on that is your headline. The headline is one of the first things, and that's right under your name right here. One of the first things that they see about you. Does it tell who you are and what you want to do? Does it address what the recruiter is actually looking for? And does it address your target market? What is your target market is something that you need to know about. And again, another question about your profile, once you've written it, it's kind of like your resume. Have you refreshed it recently? Or does your profile or your resume look like an old rusty car because it's been neglected, hasn't been updated, touched up? Again, when you found things out from other people like misspellings in there that you can go in and correct. How long has it been since you updated it? Well, one of the things that somebody said in the LinkedIn presentation I went to about 18 months ago was, again, it's like going to the grocery store. A lot of things in the grocery store, like the produce, you can look at it, and if it's got a bruise on it, you're probably not going to pick that up. If it's got an expired date on it or a best used date by it, and that's passed, you're probably not going to select that one to take home with you. Well, produce is the same way as meat. The meat has a date on that like trout, and most of the canned goods that you see on the shelf also have a best used by date. So you want to update your resume and your profile periodically. And I'm going to give you some tips how you can do that easily, because once it's refreshed, it's considered a fresher resume or fresher profile on LinkedIn. Again, what you see, what have you done in 6 to 10 seconds to get my attention? What do you see? Well, I've got a background photo here or a banner photo. I've got open to work in this one. I didn't have it in the others. I've got my headline there, and I've got open to work down here. It gives you a chance to talk about it further. LinkedIn is a powerful platform for job searching and networking and career management, and creating a strong profile will boost your chances of landing your next job. So what are the elements that are in that we're going to be talking about? Well, completing your profile increases your LinkedIn ranking. You need to complete all the sections, or as many sections as you can, using a professional headshot, although selfies are okay. If you do use a selfie, make sure that the background is okay and that you don't have any glares from bald spots for those of you who are hair short, and for off your glasses. I've got glasses that tend not to have a reflection. And the banner photo or that you can create, you can do some creative things with that as well. The headline, it should use the job title of the position you're applying for. If you haven't created a job title, LinkedIn is going to make it easy for you. They're going to take the title of the last job that you had and use that, but that may not be what you're looking for. If you want to use the open to work, again, there are some caveats about that we'll talk about in a minute. You can list at least 5 additional job titles in that. Your about section, it's an overview of your career. Really, it's kind of a summary, but they used to call that. And again, we'll talk about that in greater detail. In that about to work section, you want to have your email and phone address as the first line, because if you can't find it until the bottom, people may not find it there. Again, and if we're not first degree connections, it may be difficult for that recruiter to get hold of you. Your experience section should have your job title. And if you have an unusual title like Member of Technical Staff 3, why don't you use the title as generally recognized in industry in parentheses. Should describe your duties and measurable results and include keywords from your profession. Those are all tricks that are involved in getting the recruiter's attention to show that you have the expertise that they're looking for. The skills that from your profession are part of that, as well as endorsements, which is something that LinkedIn has made a little bit more difficult to do. Education, award, certification, and professional development are other areas that, excuse me, that people look at. A lot of the resumes and profiles that I've looked at over the years simply talk about when somebody got their degree. They don't update it with what additional coursework they've taken, what seminars they've attended, what awards they've achieved, what certifications they've got. And recommendations is a key aspect of LinkedIn. It allows you to show what other people think of your work. It can include from your comments from your former coworkers and former bosses. And basically, it's like a reference letter, and it can be part of that. And probably should have at least 1 or 2 endorsements from recommendations from those that you've worked with most recently. But those are the things that you want to do that. And the reason that you want to have that, include all those things, is the more of those that you've completed, the higher that your ranking will be when a search is conducted. So another verse of scripture that I like is, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Again, from Jeremiah 29:11. So what, again, does your headline say? Does it tell who you are? Does that identify what you do? And is your headline a grabber? Does it get people's attention and want to contact you? Well, let's look at some sample headlines. I've kind of gathered these together on one screen so that you can see them. The top three are nothing wrong with anything about those, but they don't present you in the most positive light. Likewise, the fourth one, formerly VP of Finance, says that somebody is no longer doing that. So what have they been doing since then is one of the questions that recruiters will have in their mind. And as you look at the others, a little bit more descriptive. Again, supply chain, procurement, and purchasing is pretty succinct. But again, for somebody who is looking in that area, they might click further to see what's further on in your profile. And likewise, senior account. All of these are done for 1 or 2 lines to get them on the screen. But let's look at some other ones. Again, LinkedIn has made it easier for you to use other words, adjectives to describe what you've done. You can see some of those there. And this chart is in the book, in the slides if you want them. So just ask me. And here's one. One of the things that you can do is to do a test of your profile headline, again, by going to headlines@sharethrough.com down there at the bottom. This is my old profile. I had a rating of about 55 and the overall score, and 70 for the engagement and 55 for first impression. When I updated it, and I did some changes to it, included more in the headline, this is what it looked like. The ratings went up to about 70%, 78% overall, and the overall engagement score was about 72%. So those are some of the little things that you can see differences in what you can do on that. Again, I've used the pipe character here to separate. To separate the characters down here at the bottom, and that's a character that's on the shift key or just above the shift key on your keyboards. And if you use that, be sure and leave a space on either side, because if you link those together, that will not be a searchable term when somebody looks for your resume. Now let's look further at that. Here's some more descriptive headlines. Again, adding narratives with that, increasing productivity in highly regulated industries like telecommunications or in utilities. Again, product manager in the aerospace sector, international business. Again, very descriptive. Increased satisfaction scores of a customer relations manager by 30% over the year. Project managers using some keywords like idle, scrum master, and agile in their description. And able to explain high tech to customers. Again, to break down the complexity of software frequently so that managers can understand what it is and how it can benefit them. Business analysts, again, able to really bridge the gap between techies and management, or between techies and customer. Full stack applications developer, again, using buzzwords like AWS, Amazon Web Services. Okay, and passionate about building scalable solutions, buzzwords that tend to get people's attention. Here's some more headlines. Again, systems analysts in healthcare using digital it should change that to indices to reduce hospital admission paperwork by 54%. If any of you have gone to the hospital to check in, you know what the check-in process is all about through admissions. But those are just some that you can see how they can do that. Another verse of scripture which I like is, you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you. Trust in the Lord forever. For the Lord himself is the rock eternal. It's kind of like the rock of ages, or that rock in one of the insurance commercials. Why do you want to use open to work is another thing. Well, again, there's some caveats that I mentioned earlier. One, if you're in stealth mode looking for a job, you may want to limit your open to work to just recruiters. I've linked it here. As you notice, that's one of the options when you use open to work, to open to all, okay, to all LinkedIn members. The other option is to LinkedIn recruiters. Those are the people who have subscribed to the LinkedIn recruiter software licenses that Microsoft sells. And we'll look at that a little bit later. Okay. And most recruiters, I will tell you, don't use those software licenses. They use it like I did and just don't pay for it. Again, as a free service. And again, recruiters want to know this area down here in terms of that, see more details, allows you to tell the location that you're looking at, and particularly if you're looking to relocate. You know, that's an area that you could talk to them about, and people like to do that. And when you're using the open to work, this is what you can do is you start to add titles in there. You can notice what there, I started to add career, and you notice the options that are down there to describe that. You can also describe the workplaces that you're interested in, whether you want to work remote or hybrid or on-site. Increasingly, companies are going back to on-site or to hybrid with less work remote. And the locations, you can add a location here if you wanted to work in Fort Worth, or you wanted to work in El Paso or Houston, or perhaps New York City or California. And what is your status for looking right now? Those are all things that recruiters can look at if you use that open to work. Another area is the analytics section on your homepage. And again, it's there and you could see that. Just touch that. The things that you can do there are the impressions. How many times have your profile been looked at? How many followers do you have? Number of profile views in the last 90 days, number of search appearances of the last week. And that search appearance is what you want and how many have delved down into your profile over that time. So that's what is available in your analytics that are available, and you can play with that when you click on one of those. I think as the search appearances, it will tell some of the companies that have been looking at you, not necessarily the people. And are you using the featured section to display answers to your work? This may be another area that you have neglected in the past. Well, the area this allows you to show any speeches that you've done. These are the PowerPoint presentations that I've done. If you've written a book like Jeff's, or you've done a PowerPoint presentation. I know my son is a graphic designer in Austin. He has a portfolio of all of the work that he's done and the different motion graphics that he has designed. But those are some of the things that you can tell people about. You can also post your resume here. I hesitate to recommend that because a resume posted here is kind of static. It's cast in concrete and you can't really change it unless you repost it. It becomes stale if you do that. Okay, let's talk about your about section. It really used to be called the summary. And this is a particularly good one. I don't recommend that you make your summary paragraphs quite this long. Normally the summary paragraphs are about 3 to 5 lines. And then you have a page break or a carriage return in there to do that. I like this one because it has the email address up front. Again, you want to make it easy for people to get hold of you, to pick up the phone or to send you a quick email that you're interested in talking to somebody. This one mentions a number of things. It's mixed bold with regular typeface. Again, 20 years of experience, financial planning and leader, financial planning and analysis are the specialty that he mentions. He's used an acronym down there, the FP&A, and most recruiters of accounting and finance people know what that means. But again, he spelled it out once. I recommend that you do that at least the first time that you use one. Okay. And looking at that, the contact information is there on the first line. Sometimes people will have it at the end of their about section. That may be down 200 characters, maybe down 2,000 characters. And if somebody has to click all the way through, because usually the first 3 lines are what shows up when somebody sees your profile on your about section. These are some other sample summaries, if you will. LinkedIn has made it easy and it's okay. It's now politically okay to use first person. Most times resumes are written in third person, but the first example, I'm a grateful partner to many world-class award-winning companies in executive coaching and leadership development. Again, a summary of what the person has done. Key competencies, executive coaching, training, talent development, career transition solutions, and then the experience at Walt Disney World, Disney Institute as a senior recruiter. The second example, creative, strategic hands-on marketer. Again, most of the time, if you were to use that in a resume, people would consider it fluff if you didn't give an example about that. So that's just something to consider as you think about your summary, how you can beef it up. Let's move on and take a look at the employment section, the about section or experience. This is from my profile. When I was with Oracle Corporation, I was there for actually 2006 to 2010, but they had purchased Siebel, which was a former competitor, and my experience on my actual resume links those two together. But you want to have your company, your job title and your company name and the dates, which is always a good idea. And your duties and location, you want to limit it to 3 to 5 lines. The reason being people don't like to read long paragraphs. They tend to tune out when you do that. Think about your email when you get it in the morning. What you typically do, if you're like I am, is you look at the sender line and you look at the subject line and you make a decision whether you want to open it and read it or discard it. I've also included a couple of accomplishments in there. Twice selected as recruiter of the quarter from among 50 recruiters at Oracle Recruiting in the United States, and was selected as the representative from the recruiting organization to go to the group that I work with, which was the consulting organization. And Oracle only has about 30,000 consultants that are titled like that. So that was a pretty big organization to be selected for that. And also included there is a time to say goodbye, as a farewell note that Amanda Gill, the director of recruiting for Oracle USA, North America, a goodbye note about me. And again, that's something unique that you can include in your profile about that. Again, if you're unemployed, I'll add that you can add additional sections to your profile that are now include volunteer experience, your profile, your project experience. But more important, if you are out of work right now and you show an end date for your last job, you want to have a current position that you're looking for work. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. Here's an example of that. Notice I said the title is software development engineer or software applications engineer, looking for a full-time position. You might include the industry that you're looking at, financial services or telecommunications or semiconductors, whatever it might be. Yes, I started to type in Dallas. Notice that there's Dallas-Fort Worth, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and Dallas, Texas, but there's also a Dallas, Oregon, and a Dallas, Georgia. So you need to be careful about that. But adding this current position, LinkedIn counts having a current position. So if you've used an end date for your last job and are in the process of looking for a job, you have that position as a blank when it does its search on the algorithm. You can add a project, as you mentioned. I've included one when I was program manager for the Dallas Fort Worth Staffing Management Association for a number of years. I selected speakers for the programs every other month that we had one. But that's a way that you can do that. I know when I was a recruiter at Oracle and at Siebel, I used to get resumes from consultants who'd worked for IT consulting firms, and they would frequently have a whole page devoted to a project. And it gave all the details about that project, how big it was, how many lines of code, how many people were involved, what the project was designed to serve. Another area that's very important is your skills and endorsements area. Again, that's a section on your profile toward the bottom. In completing this section, you're now allowed up to 100 different skills, that you can list there. And display the ones that you want to emphasize and others. If you don't select any skills, LinkedIn will select 2 or 3 that they think are the best fit. But those may not be the ones that you want to emphasize to support what you're looking for. So how do you go about changing that? There's a simple way that you can do that. Well, first, before we do that, there's a way to figure out what your skills are. And this is an area that you can go to, this one right up here, LinkedIn and GitHub.io careers. If you want to skip this first page, and you can find out career by skipping to the second page, finding your skills. It lists job titles and the skills related for about 150 positions. And you can select those. If some of those words are not in your profile, guess what? It's a way to include them. Okay, and it will match your profile against the normal qualifications for those kinds of positions. But it's something worth exploring on your own. And that's here in the deck if you want it. And again, are your skills organized for maximum impact? I mentioned that LinkedIn will choose 2 for you if you don't. So how do you go about changing it? Well, normally up there, you see the 3 dots that are up there in the corner, emphasized with the arrow. If you click on that 3 dots, it will allow you to reorder your skills and endorsements. You can hold your cursor over here on the 4 lines to the right, hold it down and drag and drop to what you want. So if you wanted human resources to be up there at the top or professional recruiting, you could drag those up to the top. It will only show 2 or 3 when you're at that, and you can reorganize those periodically as one way to refresh your resume that I've mentioned before. Again, do that periodically for emphasis on the positions that you may be applying for. Maybe you have different skill sets that are important, because skills are important here, but they're also important in your profile itself, in your about section, in your employment section. So by reordering those, you can do that. The other thing that you want to do, and the last thing we want to do in this first section, is to look at other people's profiles. And you might say, well, why do you want to do that? Well, typically a recruiter is going to look at 10 of these screens, and there are about 10 thumbnail sketches on each screen. And if you don't show up on those first 10 screens, you're probably not going to be considered for that position. Okay. So you could do a search for yourself, like a recruiter in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and see if you show up like I did. I used to show up in the first 2 pages, because I was very active on LinkedIn as a recruiter and as a job and career counselor. But again, if you don't show up there, you might open a couple of these, take a look at the wording, adopt some of that wording for your own profile. Don't copy them verbatim. People may recognize the person that you've copied from. Just as a little bit of humor there. Okay. Let's move on a little bit and take a look at searching for your job. This is looking at a person there that had recruiter in theirs. And again, you see recruiter in her headline. She has a very brief headline. She's shortchanging herself. She's got up to 220 characters that she can play with, and she's used about 30 right there. She's open to work, and she's got some titles that are there, and she's got the about section. You see the first 2 lines. That's what about shows up, what shows up on your about when somebody looks at your screen. Okay. So let's take a look at searching for a job on LinkedIn. How does LinkedIn run a search? When it runs, the algorithm runs, what does it do? And how do recruiters actually do a search? Is it any different from LinkedIn? And some recruiter research results, and then how to go about searching for you for a job. Well, let's talk about that. These are the things that recruiters really look for. Although some have said that they look for your profile, you receive a score for each section of your profile and for your activity. How many times are you on it? Have you commented on somebody's blog, or you posted something yourself? I know I frequently will post that. I'm speaking here on LinkedIn about that on the Zoom meeting for Career DFW. Higher scores in each section appear to the top of the list. The results are based on the qualifications being sought. So what are they thinking about? Well, recruiters generally look for a match of job titles. And then some recruiters say they look for skills and experience. I emphasize job titles because that matches up what they're looking for. And those appear in your headline, your open to work section, your about section, and your employment section. And use both your present and past titles there. So the more that you have of those, more likely that you're going to rate at the top of those sections. I know when I was a recruiter for Siebel, we were purchased by Oracle Corporation, and I was looking for a Siebel consultant because we still supported the Siebel product, and looking for a Siebel consultant in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I ran a job posting up there and had 75 responses, which as a recruiter, that's not too bad, not too many, not too few, just like Goldilocks, that middle bed, if you will. And again, what I found there was that 50 of those didn't even have the word Siebel in their profile. They'd applied because it was Oracle Corporation, and Oracle's bound to have other jobs for me in Minneapolis. So, but it was not. If they had the Siebel in their profile, among the 25, it was there once, and they maybe used Siebel as a product, a software product. If they had it 10 times, they were probably somebody who had more intimate knowledge of Siebel and maybe how to install it, which is what I was really looking for. So job titles are important in what they look for. Keywords and skills are also important, but you also want to have industries and specific companies. I know certain industries like healthcare tend to look for people who have healthcare experience, or if somebody's looking specifically for somebody from another company. I know when I was with Oracle, I got my hand slapped by our legal department because I'm searching for people from Oracle Corporation to come to work for Siebel. And so that was an attaboy for having done that, but a warning, be careful about how you do it. The education and geographic experience, people want people sometimes with specific skills in education. I know I interviewed for a company here in Dallas that were looking for an MBA with and from a top 10 business school in the United States. And I happened to attend for my graduate degree, University of California at Berkeley, which is one of the top 10. And geographic location. I may look for somebody in a specific area of the country. And current and prior companies, your pedigree, and how long were you there? Also important. And then they look at your summary and experience and really do an evaluation. Well, let's take a look now at an actual recruiter search. This is from the input data from a recruiter software license. And they actually have 3 screens like that. And you can notice how they can introduce job titles, location, skills and assessments, companies, schools, graduation, etc. So those are some of the things they can narrow down. This was done several years ago when there's 710 million people on LinkedIn. And it search by entering certain data, you could narrow that down to about 70 candidates in about 30 seconds. So it narrows the search down significantly for the recruiter looking for someone. But let's take a look at some actual results. This was for a product manager, and this was in the Seattle area was their preference. And again, they would take somebody from down in the San Francisco area as well. There were about 6,900 that in the pool that they adopted, and 2,500 of them had connections with the recruiter's company that they were looking for. And maybe it engaged in the brand. Those are all things that you can do on LinkedIn to follow that. Titles that they may look for are product management and product marketing. Those frequently overlap in the industry. They were looking for specific companies. Microsoft, Amazon, and Fluke are all headquartered in the Seattle area. And they also mentioned University of Washington, which is in Seattle. So those are just some of the things that they can narrow it down to different candidates. This was another search was actually on LinkedIn. This was for a project manager in the Chicago area. And notice there are almost 43,000 candidates in that pool. But only 83 of them on that particular time. And this was when employment was very tight, unemployment was very low, and people were looking for companies. Again, 83 that were open to work and open to new opportunities. And notice that they have Chicago area, and they've also had, if they were looking for business strategy and analytics, and these are other keywords that they might have included, skills that they're looking for. Google, Facebook, Evernote, LinkedIn are companies that they would choose from as preference. And Northwestern is a school just north of Chicago. So how do you apply all of that when you look for a search, when you look for a job on LinkedIn? Well, there are two ways that you can do that. You can use the search bar there at the left, and you can use the jobs tab over on the right. The two ways that you can do that, just a job title there, or when you use the jobs tab, it looks like this. It allows you to search for a job or a company in a given location, and then you enter the search. If you don't enter a location or don't have a default setting where you've had a search that you've run before, it will default to the United States, and we'll see some results of that in just a second to show what I'm talking about. This is a search for a sales rep in the United States, these were jobs available for sales representatives in the United States. It comes up the United States because they're not entered in this box there a location, and it resulted in about almost 200,000 different jobs. Now there's some things that you can do. Those filters that are along this bar right here that you can use to narrow that search down. So let's take a look at some of those by entering a location up there at the top, like Plano, Texas, is one of the locational filters, and also the distance location. This one was for a senior accountant in Plano, Texas. The default setting on most of the job boards, including LinkedIn, is 25 miles, because that's what you've taught recruiters and companies. I don't want to look for a job that's more than 25 miles from where I live. So recruiters said, okay, I won't look for anybody farther than that. And companies and job boards have said, okay, I'll limit that. But if you're looking for a job and you live in Denton and are willing to work in Dallas or Fort Worth, that's over 25 miles. So I'm going to up your parameter to 50 miles on that particular one. The job itself is here, and its actual description is over here on the right side. That's one that you can take a look at in terms of that. As a sales, as a senior accountant. In that particular job, there were 144 results. Okay, but you can also narrow it down by choosing the past week. LinkedIn allows you to do the past 24 hours, I think, the past 3 days. I'm used to a couple of different job boards. But this was for a quality assurance, and this was for a presentation I did for the American Association of Quality Management in their national association. They had a quarterly meeting here in the Dallas area. So I did this presentation for them. I use the word quality assurance because that will encompass all of the jobs in quality assurance. But I was working on them, and that resulted with about 1,900 positions that were available. Okay, the different jobs. But that's too many for the audience that I was speaking with. So we added the word manager. Now, manager would be included in all those quality assurance jobs, but you narrow it down by almost 90%, over 90% there, as you see there. I've added the past week because that narrows it down. Most jobs tend to get filled pretty quickly, and you may have gone and found a job and then gone back to it later, and it's been removed, taken down. So that's a question whether you want to do. Okay, want to be aware of. Next thing that you do, I'm an executive assistant when I was working in career transition consulting. I'm working with a number of people that have been executive assistants. Again, there are, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there were 960 candidates. But you notice the Dallas, Georgia that I mentioned and other locations. So you have to do that. It has some artificial intelligence, but it makes you do something with the prompt that they get. So that's one of the things that you can do. Again, this is a recruiter. I'd use myself again as an example, or our talent acquisition specialist. And again, the job you can do with jobs. And again, the reason I like to show that in this group, there's some group, when you click down on this down arrow and you can click on groups, because some of the professional groups and professional associations have listings for jobs that are in the posting, but they are not posted on LinkedIn proper. They're specifically for looking for people with their professional background. And so they'll post the jobs there, but they don't appear there in LinkedIn. Okay, so that's just something to be aware of. And you can set an alert by moving this radio button from left to right or clicking on the set alert And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay. These are some of the filters. This screen doesn't appear anymore on LinkedIn. It's from an old shot that I did, and now even the LinkedIn has taken out the filters on the right third of the page. But these are all the filters that are available to you in most cases. They picked up the salary one from Indeed.com, and while the salaries that are shown are ganged together, they're not the most accurate salary, but it does give you a fair idea of the number of jobs. This is for recruiter in Dallas County. At the time, there were 2,000, almost 2,100 jobs. But again, by applying the filter for just the last week, that eliminated the job from past month and any time. People have forgotten to take the job down. And also has salary listings. You can narrow the 2,087 down to 48 that are pay 120 or above. Again, talk about easy apply. Some jobs allow you to easy apply, and I say that's okay, but only use easy apply if it allows you to include or upload a current resume, because otherwise easy apply will take your profile and treat that as your resume and send it in. And that may not be targeted or customized to the requirements of the particular job that you're looking at. Because most of us, and I know Jeff is one of those, when he is taught on resumes, we talk about he has a master resume that's about 20 pages long, and he customizes it down to 2 or 3 pages for each job. So unless you can customize it and use that customized resume or profile, you may not want to use the easy apply button. Okay. Notice the locations that you can choose. You could choose industries, and you could choose companies. You could choose jobs. Most jobs on most job boards are full-time, but there are contract and temp positions that are available and part-time positions and volunteer positions. And sometimes you can apply for volunteer positions to gain the necessary experience for a given job itself. Again, creating job alerts. I mentioned that before. Here's the radio button again. You can move to left to right, or click on the button. When you do that, you have the option of a daily or weekly. If you look daily, they will come in about 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning in your email. If you choose weekly, you're just going to get them once a week. It takes you maybe 2 or 3 minutes to go through the jobs that are posted. I still get some because I do career consulting, and I still get some. I'm working with a young man looking for a teaching position or a position in a library somewhere. And so I get positions for him because of the searches that I've done. Okay, some homework to wrap it up. Again, things that you want to do is to complete all the sections of your profile and use the name that you would normally use when you introduce yourself to people. And do refresh your profile at least once a week. As I say, it may be as simple as something like rearranging the order of your skills. It's on your skills area. Your headline and job title or job titles. You can list multiple job titles. I've seen too many job headlines which talk about functional areas of expertise. I don't search for functional areas of expertise. Like project management, I do search for project managers. So that's just something to remember as you fill out your titles. Open to work section. Below your headline, you can list additional file titles. Your about, in your about section, you want to have your phone number and email address on the first line of your profile. Okay. Make it easy for them to contact you. Your experience section going to have those job titles, but do include measurable results. What were some of them? Keep it short and simple. But what are some of the measurable results, like increase profits by 25% or sales by 25% or reduce downtime? Again, you don't always have to use numbers or percentages, but those are most effective. And do a people search for yourself. And if you don't show up on those first 10 screens, do some browsing on other people's profiles and see if there aren't some words that you can use in your own to beef up your profile. Jeff, I think we're about done. That's that additional section I was talking about if you asked for the slide deck. There's an additional 20 slides in there with that. I looked at those this morning. Okay.
All right. Do you want to look at somebody's profile, or you look for a job for somebody?
Yes, let's do that if we can, Jeff.
I'll let you get LinkedIn called up.
Well, I've got it, Jeff. I'm going to have to go down and see if I can. Jeff, I'm having trouble getting there, so let's look at yours.
All right. Let me. All right, if you want us to look at your profile, let us know.
Or if you want us to help you find a job, we'll find you a job as well. We've got about 20 minutes, I think, Jeff, that we can do that.
Anybody want us to look at your profile or position you're looking?
It's Dawn Jones.
Yes, Dawn.
Just I'll volunteer. Why not?
All right. Yay. Are you this first person here?
That one.
This is you?
Yes.
All right. Let me move a couple of things out of here. All right. So we're connected as a first degree connection. So when I look at her contact information, I can see her email address. She has verified who she is, which it's a great way if you're dealing with, you don't know if you're dealing with bots or, other computer programs, or if the people are legitimate. Having that verification is definitely good to have.
Okay, before you leave your headline, Jeff, let's go back up a minute. Dawn, you've used about 100 characters. You have 220 characters to use there. You've used one job title, okay? There are other positions as a quality leader. When you look for a job, what are some of the titles of the other jobs that you look for? Those would be the one, if you're a leader or manager or director, those are other titles, but there are other titles that you can use that you want to include there. Likewise, you have not used open to work, you could do that and list additional titles. Now, you may be in a stealth mode where you want to keep it quiet for your current employer that you're not looking. So
Yeah.
then you can limit it to recruiters. That's one of the options on open to work.
I toggled it off as one of those changes to help me get more visible. I'll put it back on in a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
And the question, when you said the title, back up here in the where it says quality leader, how would you recommend putting multiple titles in there?
Just use a pipe character, which is on your keyboard above the enter key. It's a shift and it looks like an up and down line.
Fine.
Do that to separate them. Okay. But driving corrective action, that's an action that you've taken, but it doesn't tell what jobs that you've taken. And unlike some recruiters, I mean, some of the presentations we've had on LinkedIn Tuesdays have said you should have skills, but I think it's more important to have the job titles. So
you got to remember, what are the recruiters going to do? They go on LinkedIn, they're going to type in a job title that they're looking for. So in this case, you've only given us one job title that you hopefully would match with what they're looking for. Where if you can list 3 or 4, that will be more. And also be sure to use the job titles from LinkedIn, because recruiters don't make up chief people person. They're going to use the default titles that are in LinkedIn. So allow LinkedIn to come up with your job titles.
We have, Don, you have quality control, you have quality assurance, or a couple of other titles that you can use that are part of a quality leader. Again, quality leader may pick up all those other titles, but it may not when you're looking for a job. Okay. Your about section, I know Jeff recommends putting that there. Well, let's look down to the bottom of her about section. So she got her phone number there.
Yes.
It's right there. You can leave it there if you want, but I would put it on the first line, because when you open up a profile, the first thing that somebody sees is only about the first 3 lines.
Okay.
Then it says see more. You know what, if you have enough interest in those first 3 or 4 lines, they may click through and read the rest of it. Now that looks pretty good in terms of what you've done, the different aspects of quality assurance. You have aerospace quality. That's another one that you could have. Cost accounting management. Okay. That may not be what you want to do. You've got companies that are there. Okay. Your pedigree, if you will. So that's pretty well written that you've got right there. Okay, again, the thing that I do would be to open up and have a couple of other job titles in your about section. I mean, in your headline. Okay.
Okay,
Let's
thanks.
look, Jeff, down to her skills. Notice how her different jobs are linked together there at Raytheon. Okay. And if you've had different companies that have been acquired, because I was with a Raytheon company that acquired E-Systems, and they were part of that. She has quality assurance and project management. Now, those are the only two for her showing, and she has 98 skills, but they may not be the ones that you want to emphasize. So that you can do that, those three dots, as I say, on your personal profile. When you go to do that, if you click those three dots in the upper right-hand corner of that box, it allows you the option to change your positions on your different titles that are there. You've also got some recommendations, which is great. The dates are 25 and 25, so that's great. They're fairly current ones. That's a group that I did the presentation for, American Society for Quality. So, looks good other than that.
Thank you.
Somebody else to volunteer, Jeff.
Who else would like us to look at your profile?
I volunteer. My name is Ellen Carter.
Ellen Carter, okay.
Yeah, I just put in my LinkedIn. Oh, yeah, see if you can find it.
DER, Jeff. Ellen Carter.
Yes, that's correct.
Is this you, Ellen?
That's correct.
That's you, okay. You definitely want to have a picture because people will, for the most part, they'll probably automatically reject you if you don't have a picture.
The other thing is you haven't listed any job titles.
Huh, interesting.
You've listed a function, strategic procurement, supply chain, Six Sigma. Those are all functional areas of expertise. What are the titles of the jobs that you look for?
I think there's a security setting there. That's the problem. That's why you're not going to be a security setting. So you're not be able to see my full name.
Well, the full name is not as important as the headlines there and your contact information. So as a second degree connection, check our contacts, Jeff.
I think because I locked it, I've locked it, but I have not opened it up.
That's your people she's linked to, Jeff. Above that is their contact information.
Oh.
Okay. As a recruiter, I have no way of getting in touch with you unless we're linked to somebody else. I have to send an email or an in-mail to Pete Hernandez or Michael Wilk or somebody else like that. Your about section, you don't have it in your about section. And you may have a concern about people calling you or spam call. If so, you can get a Google phone number. They screen your calls for you.
Okay.
But you want to have your email address so that people can at least reach out to touch you. Because otherwise, it's nice, it's pretty, you've got an interesting banner shot, but and you've done a couple of right buzzwords, Lean Six Sigma. So
I think my visibility is the problem.
I'm sorry, speak up.
My visibility. Can you hear me?
Your visibility.
Your visibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if you go into privacy, go into your settings, privacy and settings, if you're looking for a job, have everything turned on so people can see all areas of your profile. You can restrict it. And I know that recruiters will deliberately restrict it because they don't want you looking at their contacts or they don't want you looking at their phone number. But if you're looking for a job, open it up so that everybody can see everything.
Right. That's what I'm doing too. Yeah. As we speak, I'm still I'm so glad that we're actually doing this exercise.
Okay, let's go down to our skills.
I
area,
didn't even
Jeff.
know that.
Okay. As somebody in
Can't
supply
believe it.
chain,
Yeah,
this doesn't, business transformation and management consulting, in my mind, don't relate to supply chain or procurement. There are things that you've done, and that's great. But if I'm looking for somebody with a background in supply chain or purchasing or procurement, those are the two titles the skills that I'd want to be on top. So go in and reorder your skills. You know, when you click on that and there's a pencil there, it allows you to go in and edit that section.
And you've got two recommendations from 2025, which is good.
And again, going into your group setting for American Society for you were the quality person? No, your supply chain. There are groups in supply chain as well. You can join those groups, and those groups may have jobs in the groups. They don't appear on LinkedIn. So if I look for a job using LinkedIn search bar, they're not going to show up.
I need to fix this security setting. Yeah, I believe that a lot of stuff is already, it's basically locked down. I
Okay.
need to fix it, but thank you.
Hey,
Okay.
Jeff, this is Pete Ascona. I can go next if you want.
Pete, all right, we'll take a look at yours.
You can beat me up. That's me.
Pete's
That's
also
you.
a second good connection. Let's first look at his contacts. Okay, Pete, we don't have a way to get hold of you based on your contacts. I can't click that as a recruiter or hiring manager.
Okay.
Reach out to
All
you
right.
because you're a second. Okay, the other thing that I will sell, you haven't used Open to Work, and that's fine. You may have only opened it up to just recruiters who buy the LinkedIn software license. Okay, but if you're open to look, again, business excellence leader, I've never searched for a business excellence leader in 40 years of recruiting. Sorry.
All right.
Operations branch manager, yes. You can list some of the companies like FedEx and Fortune 200, Texas Instruments. Again, but you haven't listed that. What are the job titles that you're looking for? That's what recruiters go in. That's one of the first things that they do. They enter the job titles. Okay.
All right.
Let's scroll on down a little bit. Your about section. Okay. You have your contact information at the bottom. Jeff puts his in his banner shot or banner picture behind his headshot. But again, the first three lines are all that people see when they first look at your profile in the about section.
Okay. So move my
Just take that
email, my cell, and all that to the top.
or repeat it.
Put in there, let's connect.
Or you can
put in
repeat it at
there
the top.
a call to action.
Okay.
Let's connect that, and with your email address and your phone number. And you don't
I
have to
look
put
forward
it
to hearing from you, and make somebody want to reach out.
Yeah.
Don't really need your LinkedIn thing because we're on your LinkedIn. You don't need to really list that because we're on your profile right now.
Okay.
You'd want to put this in any emails, and you want to make sure that's on your resume, but you don't need it on LinkedIn because that's where we are right now.
Scroll down and look. Okay. You haven't been too descriptive in your, open to new opportunities. That's great. Okay. As a senior manager of what? Branch manager of what? Branch manager can be shoes. They can be industrial supplies. They can be some description of what kind of industries that new opportunities that you're looking for. If you have a specific, you want to put that. People tend to buy and hire people if they have the expertise in their industries as well.
Okay.
So logistics manager or a warehouse manager, procurement manager, supply chain are all ones that you're probably going to list in there. So use some of the titles that you've had when you look for a job, those are the titles that you're going to have up there also in the about section. Scroll down, Jeff, to his skills section. And the reason I mentioned that skills, okay, you have reverse logistics, supply and operation. Those are decent for what you're looking for, but there may be other ones that are better. Okay.
You need to get some current recommendations somehow.
Okay, I will.
Reach out to your former boss and ask them, hey, you know, and you can even write it. This is the kind of things that I did when I was working for you. Is this an accurate presentation? Can you include this in a recommendation for me?
Okay.
It's okay to ask people to give you a recommendation, even to write it for them. Okay.
All right.
I'd like
Thank
to
you.
go next.
Okay, well, I'm gonna stop there because we're after 2 o'clock. Let me, oops, I should have changed here. If you want to get Locke's deck, you can send Locke an email at lockealderson@gmail.com and just tell him you're looking for the deck, and he'll be glad to email that to you. Next week, our presentation will be with Ruth Lipsky, LinkedIn Tools for Job Seekers. So you can join us next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Career DFW and Career USA, normally we're putting on training 3 days a week, but the practice interview team and the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group are not meeting this week. For those of you who have been part of the pit crew and you know, they're not gonna meet this week, but they will be back next week, and so will the North Dallas Plano Focus Group. So we'll talk about those next Tuesday. Everybody, please have a happy July 4th. Safe and happy July 4th.
Safe and sane.
If you want to join the Career DFW or Career USA LinkedIn groups, you're welcome to join one or both. You do not need to live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to join the Career DFW group, but I will take a look at your profile. And if your profile is not mostly complete, why are you on LinkedIn? So I encourage you to get your profile as complete as possible. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career USA YouTube channel later this afternoon. Please subscribe to the channel, because if you do, every time we post a new video, you'll get an alert about that. On the Career USA YouTube channel, click on playlist. Every video that I put up goes into one of 7 different playlists. Select the one you want: resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn. You can see the titles there. Select the one you want. And then when you select view full playlist, you can go back and see all the topics and dates that we've talked about in that category and watch any video you want at your convenience. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops and you'd like to join the Career USA mailing list, you can just scan this QR code and just enter, or just send a blank email to Career USA, the +subscribe at groups.io. You don't have to put anything in the email, just send a blank email and we will get you added to the list. You won't be spammed because I control the list and only I send out the notes. Please note, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All of our speakers are volunteers. Locke is a volunteer. I'm a volunteer. Everything I've done over the last 15 years has just been to help you land your next great opportunity. So thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Locke, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff, for having me.
Safe and happy July 4th.
Same to you guys.
Thank y'all.